Canada, the average lifespan is around 80. But when we look at something called the health adjusted lifespan, so the years spent in good health, that number drops closer to 70. That's a big gap. It means that the average Canadian spends the last 10 years of their life managing ongoing health problems. Now, some decline with age is expected, but a 10-year gap is something else, and science suggests it doesn't have to be this way. In this video, we are breaking down how the Mediterranean diet supports preventive health and helps people stay healthier longer. Let's start by talking about brain health. This is one of the first things that people worry about as they get older. If you've ever watched a grandparent or a parent or even a partner lose their memory, it makes you wonder, is this going to happen to me too? So let's start here and let's dive into brain health. Can food influence brain health as you get older? Yes. And an example of this is a large review published in 2025. It looked at the results from 23 different studies, and across the board, people who followed the Mediterranean diet had a lower risk of developing cognitive decline, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. But what is most interesting is that the Mediterranean diet can even help people who are genetically predisposed to cognitive decline. And one of the strongest pieces of evidence we have for this comes from a study published in Nature Medicine. So this study followed over 5,700 adults for more than 30 years. That is incredible long-term data. What they found was that people who followed the Mediterranean diet more closely tended to have a lower risk of developing dementia and showed slower cognitive decline over time. Okay, so that lines up with what we've seen in other research. But here's what really stood out. The association appeared strongest in those with the highest genetic risk factor for Alzheimer's disease, specifically those with 2 copies of the ApoE4 gene variant. So to put that in perspective, carrying 1 copy of ApoE4 increases Alzheimer's risk by about 3 to 4 times. Having 2 copies increases risk roughly 8 to 12 times. And yet, even in this highest risk group, greater adherence to the Mediterranean diet was still linked to better brain-related outcomes. What's the main point? Genes definitely influence risk, but they don't act alone. Diet still plays a role in how the brain ages, and the Mediterranean diet is consistently linked to healthier brain aging over time. Okay, so let's switch gears and talk for a minute about how the Mediterranean diet can also protect your heart. And for this, we're going to turn our attention to a major study published in the New England Journal of Medicine known as the PREDIMED trial. Now, this is one of the largest and most influential randomized trials studying diet and heart disease. The study followed more than 7,000 adults who were at risk for cardiovascular disease for nearly 5 years. Now, participants were assigned to either a Mediterranean diet enriched with extra virgin olive oil, a Mediterranean diet enriched with mixed nuts, or a control diet that was advised to be low fat. So what they found was that those following either of the Mediterranean style diets had about a 30% lower risk of major cardiovascular events, including heart attacks and strokes, compared to the control group. Now, the findings suggest that these benefits likely came not just from the olive oil or nuts, but came from the overall Mediterranean pattern, which emphasizes, yes, healthy fats, but also legumes, whole grains, fruits and vegetables, fish, and moderate amounts of meat. This study helped to shift the thinking away from focusing only on reducing fat and towards understanding that fat quality and overall dietary pattern play a major role in heart health. Now, the benefits of the Mediterranean diet don't stop at brain and heart health. Research suggests that people who follow a Mediterranean diet tend to have more stable blood sugar levels and better insulin sensitivity over time. More on this in episode 6, so stay tuned for that. Now, we also have to mention that part of the benefits of the Mediterranean diet come not just from what you're eating, but also from what you're not eating. Think about it. The Mediterranean diet has very little ultra-processed foods, and we know that a high intake of ultra-processed foods is linked to an increased risk of hypertension, diabetes, and obesity. So the overall point is that there is a large body of evidence showing that the Mediterranean diet is consistently associated not just with living longer, but with living more of those years in good health. And this brings us to our second Mediterranean style tip for the week. Once a day, Drizzle 1 tablespoon of raw extra virgin olive oil over your meal. So this could be over your scrambled eggs at breakfast, over a lunch salad, over already cooked roasted vegetables at dinner. When you do this day after day, it compounds into a meaningful preventive health habit. In the next video, we are going to be clearing the air with common myths and misconceptions about the Mediterranean diet and how to avoid overcomplicating it. I'll see you in the next one.